Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today I have Adriana. Did I say that right?
You did,
Adriana?
yes.
Okay. It's such a pretty name.
Thank you.
And you came from
I
Texas.
came from Arizona.
Okay, but you were
I
just in
was in Texas.
Texas.
Yeah, I did a little mini road trip.
Okay. All right, so you were in Texas
I was.
right before here,
Mm-hmm.
and then did you fly in last night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Flew in
All
yesterday.
right, so we've talked through social media.
Mhm.
Like that's how I met you, through social media, and
Yeah.
saw, a little bit of your story, and just that you're really inspiring people. So I want to definitely have you come on here and talk about it, because I think a lot of what you've been through, I don't know the details.
Mhm.
We'll find out today. But I'm excited for you to share, I know it's painful, but I think it's really good for people to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's not talked about enough.
Right.
So, these things happen to people and they kind of just shut everyone out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's more damaging than healing.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, if my voice can help at least one person, be like, oh, I can talk about it, then
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
good.
I agree. Yeah. And you're relatable, unfortunately,
Yeah.
to a lot of people.
Yep.
And that's something I didn't have when I was a young widow. So we were just talking about, like, I was 25
Yeah.
when I was a widow. So you were what, 28,
I was 29.
29. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So still, it's
Yeah.
all the same. You have little kids.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you start from there? Just like tell us a little bit about, like, not, you don't have to even start with what happened, but maybe tell us a little bit about him and the
Okay.
kids and like
Yeah.
your life.
So, let's see. I am originally from California and I moved to Arizona with an ex-boyfriend. My ex-boyfriend and I broke up. Obviously, it didn't work out. And I lived with some family afterwards for maybe about a year in Arizona. And then I moved into my own house. And I lived with a couple of my cousins. They were my roommates, and we liked to party. So we had parties every like Friday, Saturday, just house parties all the time.
Right. Which is normal when you're in your 20s
Yeah.
and single.
Yeah. It was just a good time. So one night, this was my cousin's party. So someone knocks on the door and I like open the door and I like move to the side and I'm like, come on in, like I didn't know them, but I didn't know a lot of her friends. So I just assumed,
Yeah.
and here I am letting strangers into my house.
Right.
And it was Eric and his roommate, and they had a bottle of, I think it was like Bacardi. And they were like, hey, like we just moved in down the street. They were 2 houses down. They're like, we heard the music and saw the cars and, like we wanted to come introduce ourselves.
Oh, so they just showed up.
They just showed up. So yeah, that was the beginning of it all. Yeah, it was really fun. They came in and Eric was only there. I think maybe he took like one shot with us. And then he was like, I have to work in the morning, so I got to go. His roommate, Connor, which I'm still really good friends with till this day, he stayed like all night. But yeah, so that's just kind of how it started. I would go running every day. Back in the day, it was nice when I could do that.
Right.
And we lived in a cul-de-sac. So in order to like get out of the street, I had to pass his house. And he was the type of guy that was like always outside doing something, working on his cars. Like he was very hands-on. And so I would see him every day on my run, and he would joke about it afterwards, saying like she ran past my house on purpose because she wanted me to see her. And I'm like, that was the only way out. I'm sorry.
Right. Don't flatter yourself too much, buddy.
Yeah, but yeah, and then we got each other's info. I mean, I don't even think we got each other's number until like later. I mean, I say later, but everything happened pretty quickly. But we all just became really good friends. Like me and my 2 cousins and him and his roommate, like we would literally go to each other's houses all the time without even asking, like walk in. We all became best friends. It was like the best summer ever.
Yeah.
And Yeah, we started dating officially. It was July 5th of 2017. And we met that April. So it was like very quickly. I think it was like the end of April. Um, and this is the crazy part. We started dating the beginning of July, and we were like, you know what, we want to have a baby. We literally started trying to have a
You
baby
guys just
in
knew.
August. Yeah, we
Yeah.
just knew. I remember I told my cousin, and she was like, okay, if that's what you want.
You're crazy, but
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, he moved in, and yeah, we were trying. And then, it wasn't just that easy. We ended up getting pregnant, I think, in like February, the following February.
Okay.
Got married on July 5th, our 1 year anniversary, like dating anniversary, which is
Mm-hmm.
also his dad's birthday. His dad passed away when he was young, so it was just a special day.
Yeah.
Yeah, fast forward, we had Emmy in October of 2018. Um, and then we had my son 2 years later, and then Riley. But going back, when I met him, um, I didn't know he was an addict. Like we hung out a few times, and I remember like me and my cousin were at their house, and we were like going through his desk for some reason, like we were looking for something, and he was in there with us. And I opened this, I think it was like a flute. So I opened the case where the
Mm-hmm.
flute was in, and there was a needle in there. And I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And he was like, "Oh shit." And I was like, "What is it?" And he was like, okay, he was like, I used to be a heroin addict. And I think I even like maybe laughed because he was such a jokester, like
Right.
the biggest jokester, like
Okay.
always messing around with people. He was just like the life of the party. All like didn't like seeing anyone sad. Always just like he was one of a kind. He was man, I miss it. He was just so crazy and fun and outgoing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
So you were like,
I
yeah,
kind of
okay,
laughed. Yeah, I
whatever.
was like,
Yeah.
whatever. He was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, I don't believe you. And he was like, Connor, come here, his roommate. He was like, why is there a needle in here? And he was like, oh yeah, he's a recovering heroin addict. And I was like, oh shit. Me growing up, like I'm so naive to drugs at this point. Like I've never I mean, I've seen and heard about like like the hardcore drugs on
Right.
movies and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
like my family never talked about it. I never really knew anyone that did that. Me myself, other than like smoking weed here and there, like I didn't know about it.
Right.
And I didn't know about the addiction aspect of it either, like how, controlling that can be.
Right.
So yeah, he was like, yeah, I'm in recovery, this and that. This was before we even officially started dating. So I was like, oh, okay. He was a big drinker too. So I don't know. I just never really thought it was that big of a deal because, here he is like still partying every day and like
Still
getting
drinking.
drunk and
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I thought I sounds so dumb, but I really thought it was something you could just be like, okay, I'm done. And he
Well,
hasn't
yeah,
done
because
it in
you
years.
don't know.
So,
Right.
like he's
Right.
not going to do it again.
And usually, like, if you are familiar with addiction, you might think, like, how's he drinking? Because that's usually a
Yes,
gateway. And,
exactly. Yeah.
like,
Which
okay.
later on, that was constantly an argument.
Okay.
Once I knew,
Right. Right.
yeah, was more educated on that. But yeah, because I mean, we like I said, like me and my cousins were in our party stage too. We literally drink and get fucked up every
Right.
weekend,
Right.
and and it was just fun. And so they moved in next door. We were all doing it together. So I was like, oh, okay. Like he's not doing drugs anymore. He's just drinking. Like
Right.
that's
Right.
good.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like how naive. But yeah,
Yeah, but you don't know
so
what you don't
no,
know,
no.
Like,
Yeah, not at all. So yeah, fast forward, we have our daughter. That was October 2018. So that's our first kid. I got really, really bad postpartum depression, like so bad. But again, I didn't know about that, you know? So
Right.
I've struggled with depression, honestly, like my whole life. So I was just like, oh, it's just me, you know, like something's, you know, it's just same old, same old.
Did that start from childhood? Was it
Yes,
rough?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So it did start from childhood. I have like quite a few childhood traumas. It got so bad, actually, my depression, when I was 20. I did attempt suicide,
Okay.
and obviously I'm still here. But yeah, it was really bad to the point where I was like, nah, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just something I've struggled with forever. Um, but it was bad. Like I remember like when she turned a year old too, like I just still did not feel like myself. But I didn't go to get any help, you know? I was just like, I think it was I didn't want to feel like I wasn't a good mom, you know, like
Right.
thinking that I can't handle my daughter, or like I'm not happy and I just had a baby, like I should be happy. You know, I was so
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. I didn't really want to like
Right.
tell anyone.
How were you feeling? Like, were you laying in bed every day? Like, just
Yes.
so, because some people are so unfamiliar with even what it
Yes.
is.
Yeah. Yeah. So
What
I
were you
would like
experiencing?
lay in bed all day. My daughter was a really good sleeper, fortunately. So I would sleep. I would sleep, literally sleep when the baby sleeps.
Okay.
And like there were, when she was like a few months, maybe like after 6 or 7 months, like whenever she was like sitting up, I remember I would like go in the living room and put on Peppa Pig, and I would sleep on the couch and she would literally just watch
Watch it.
it all day. Yeah. Or I had like a big playpen like with all her toys that she would be like content with, and I would put her in there and I'd sleep on the couch. Like it
Yeah.
was so bad. And um, I do have another cousin that lived in Arizona at the time, and she had a daughter about a month before I had Emmy. So I would try to get out of the house and like
Get
go,
together.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just like being around people. Like I just remember thinking, like, I just want to go home. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be here, you know? Um,
Now, is Eric working a lot at this
he is
point?
working a
So,
lot. So I should mention he owned and operated his own moving company. So
okay.
I mean, he was busy. He's working a lot. Um, we live in Arizona at this time. So, you know, summers are hot and
Right.
he's working all day. He's just working his ass off all day, moving people's houses,
Right.
furniture.
Right.
So he comes home, you know, he's tired, and I'm like, I don't want a mom anymore. So here you go. Like,
Right.
watch the baby. I'm going to go sleep, even though I've been sleeping all day, you know?
Yeah.
But it was so bad to the point where, like, I would make up things like, oh no, I did this and this and this because I didn't want to, you know?
Want him to know how
Yeah.
bad it was. Right.
Yeah. And I remember too, like, this still kind of makes me feel like a shitty mom. But I feel like when Emmy was born, you know, everyone has those moments like they see their baby and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's just like an aha
Yeah.
moment. I feel like I didn't get that, and that's where it all started. Because I
Hmm.
was not saying that I didn't love her. Like I
Right.
obviously felt all these things, but there was like a part of me that was like, what, like I'm not deserving of this, I guess. I don't
Right.
know. Like, so that's where it all started from.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was really bad. I didn't end up getting help until, or even like being like, yeah, I had postpartum depression, until I was pregnant with my son, because I got pregnant with my son. Emmy was like a little over a year. Maybe she was like a year and 3 months or something. Um, and yeah, so that's when I like kind of admitted it. I was like, okay, I need help, and plus I'm pregnant. Like I can't, you know, I
Right.
just feel like shit all the time.
Yeah.
But at this point, yeah, I feel like my mood obviously like rubbed off on him, and he's
Hmm.
having a hard time with work and I'm not working, so it was just like a really stressful time for him.
Hmm.
And then I remember for spring break, well, no one was in school, but it was like around spring break time.
Hmm.
I was really sick during my pregnancies. And so my mom was like, oh, you can come out here. She lived in California. She's like, you can come out here for a week. Eric had like a super busy schedule that week. So she was like, you can come out here so I can help you watch Emmy, like while you just relax. And I was like, okay. So I do. I go out there for a week, and then a couple days before I'm about to come back home, I just had a weird feeling. Like I just get these, I feel like I'm really in tune with everything around me. Yeah, I just got this really weird feeling. I knew Eric had a really big job that day. It's like 10:30, so I'm like calling him and he's not answering me. And, I'm like, I just hope you made it to your job, like all this stuff. And then he called me back later on. It was like 5 p.m. And yeah. And he was like, oh, sorry, like I've been working all day. So like I didn't have my phone. Like it's been busy.
Was that abnormal though for him?
Yes and no. So he would, like if he was working, he wouldn't just be like on his phone. So I was like, okay. So it was pretty normal, like if he was on the job. So I was like, oh, okay. Like I just wanted to make sure that you like were awake and up and stuff, because I know this was like your biggest job of the week. So then a couple days later, I get home and he has like a gash on his forehead. And I was like, what happened to you? And I think he had like a black eye, kind of. I don't even remember. But yeah, I do remember the gash and then maybe like a black eye. And I was like, what happened to you? And he was like, oh, nothing. Like me and Connor were just like messing around and he hit me or something, or we were wrestling or something. His old roommate that lived a couple
so he
houses
worked for
down.
him?
Yeah, they worked together. So I was like, oh, I said, why? And he was like, I don't remember, honestly. Like we got in a fight. And I was like, okay. I said, I'm gonna go ask him. And he's like, no, don't. Like, we're not talking to each other, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's okay. I was like, I want to know. I'm going to go ask him.
Right.
And he was like, no, don't. And he like started this whole thing and then like changed the subject. So I didn't end up asking him later on, or that day. And then I remember asking him, like, are you taking like pills or something? Like, is there something you want to tell me? Because I feel like you're just off, like he was.
Right.
And he was like, no, like why would you say that, blah blah blah. Well, fast forward maybe a few weeks. he was high at that point, I find out later on. Right. And I find out later on too that day when I called him and he didn't answer me, that night before was the night he relapsed. He injected that night. He was sitting on the toilet and he passed out with the needle, and he fell and hit the corner of the what's it called? Like the sink. Yeah. And he said he didn't wake up until he called me. So he indeed did miss that job. And yeah. And I was like, oh my God. So you're just like lying on the bathroom floor, like, like, right. Yeah. So
how'd you find out?
Later on, he told me, because I was like asking him when, like once I found out that he was on drugs, and the way I found out too, like, he was just, like I said, he was always an outside person, right? Like always fixing cars in the garage, this and that. But it was like too much at this point. Like he was like never inside, just like always outside, or right. I need to go to the gas station, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I was right. like, okay. One day I like went outside to tell him something, and he like he's like standing in his like in the door of his truck, and he like throws something. He's like, okay, come on, let's go. And he like pulls me inside, like to go back in. I was like, okay. So we're in the kitchen at that point, and I was like, let me go out there, because that was really weird. Yeah. And I go out there, and it's like a foil wrapper, and it was heroin, but I'm naive. I've never seen heroin before. Right. I was like, it looked like burnt bubble gum, And right. It's in a foil, like a bubble gum wrapper. Yeah. So I'm like thinking like, oh, okay, that's weird. And I just like put it back, and I'm like, wait, no, like that has to be something. He threw it in here. Right. So I went in with it. And he was redirecting you. Yeah. So I like grabbed it, and I go back inside, and I was like, what is this? And his face just like completely changed. And he was like, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's like, I don't even remember what he said. And I was like, okay, then I'm going to flush it down the toilet. And then he was like, no, please, no. Like, just, trying to take a drug addict's drugs away it was,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I was like, okay, then you need to tell me everything, or this is like going down the toilet. And that's when I found out that whole thing about the bathroom. And at this point, I want to say it was maybe a month, 2 months. Yeah, it was, here I am with a toddler, and I'm pregnant with
Right.
baby number 2.
And now you're probably questioning everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
That was like the beginning of the end, because at that point, everything changed. Like, I could never trust him.
Right.
He's going to work. I'm like, are you really going to work?
Mm-hmm.
I became crazy. It was bad. And that probably didn't help the situation, but I didn't know what else to do,
Right.
And I feel like I was played so many times, because like even after that, he's like, okay, like I'll stop. And I'm like, okay, like you need to stop. So he like goes through this detox, and he's like telling me how he can do it at home and it'll last like a couple days and blah, 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 this stuff, I'm like, okay. At this point, my sister's in town because she came to visit me. So I tell her, because I'm like, okay, like Eric's in the room, like detoxing. I'm like, so she's helping me watch
Probably
Emmy,
so sick,
basically.
like
Yes,
throwing up. Yeah.
so sick. But it was like for a day maybe, and then I remember at night he like got up, he was like, okay, like that's it, I'm better. And I didn't know, so I was like, okay, cool. And fast forward like a few months later, I found out again. He was like, yeah, I never stopped.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you probably took just a little bit, so he wasn't withdrawing.
Yeah. And then I had my son. Yeah, I had my son. And after that is when I went through a real detox with him, and holy shit.
Yeah, it's no joke.
Crazy.
Did he go somewhere?
No.
Oh God, you guys did it at home.
Yes. So that was another frustrating thing about it, is like, I called and called every place I could possibly call, and they're like, he can't come in until he's like 2 days or something, like without using, or 2 or 3 days, and he's already like in detox. And I was like, I have a 2-year-old and a newborn, literally like 2 days old.
Yeah.
I was like, I need help. And at this point, his mom knew, because she knew about his addiction, like before I even met him and stuff. So she was there, like she would come over like after work and stuff, but she was like really the only person that knew, like other than my sister. But my sister lived in California, so it wasn't like something I could just like come over and help me. And his whole life, his addiction was kind of kept a secret. No one really knew, other than like his mom, his best friend that like lived next door, and like close, I think just like his really good friends and his mom. He doesn't have a big family to begin with, but yeah, so it was always just kept a secret. So here I am, and that's just what I know, is like, don't tell anyone,
Right.
Don't tell anyone. So I didn't. My family didn't know.
Oh gosh.
Nobody knew. And the crazy thing is,
so you're like living with all this on your own too.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is that he like, so we were together all, I want to say like 6 years. So the 6 years we were together, he was actively using, we'll say maybe for a year, like 10 months to 12 months, because he'd go on and off and on and off.
Right.
But yeah, I never told anyone, and that sucked. And I just remember like, here I am, a mom, like new mom,
who struggles with depression.
With depression already. Yeah, my husband is an addict. And like I said, I did become really crazy, like to the point where like, he'd be like, I'm going to go here and there and here and there. And I'll be like, okay, like I'm coming with you. Right. Like when he had an iPhone, I had his location, and I became so crazy to the point where he literally switched his phone to an Android. So I couldn't Yes, that's how bad it
Yeah,
was.
but he created that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was bad. And like it's funny too cuz Connor, his best friend, um he's now dating my cousin, so he's, family now. But I always joke with him. I'm like, I know you guys would talk shit about his crazy wife. And I was like, I know you would. And I said, but I didn't care because
Right.
there was a reason for that.
Yeah.
Like there was a reason for me doing what I did.
Right.
Yeah, like maybe I went a little too far sometimes, but it's like
I think that's like human nature, though.
Yeah.
Anybody's going to,
Yeah.
regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Like if you can't trust, you are going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Especially if he's still leaving and going. And how would you not? I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, yeah, how can you not do that? I mean, like, yeah, it was so hard to not. And I remember too, like afterwards when he was clean, I would still struggle, like, because he would still drink. And like I said before, like I was a big partier and I liked to drink too. Like I enjoyed drinking like with my dinner or, just having a
Right.
And once after all of that, I completely stopped because I didn't want to be the reason why he was drinking. Like I never wanted it to be like, oh, well, you're having a beer, so I'm going to do it too. Like I gave up that part of me because I didn't want to be the reason why.
Right.
Or an excuse as to why. But I was okay with that because I wanted to support him, but that was a constant fight. It's like, you can't be doing this because it always leads back to that.
Like one bad night, you're having a bad day, whatever, and you're drinking. And, shit. Yeah. I'll just get a little of the other.
Yeah.
So easy for them to do.
It sucked. That was like the biggest fight. And I would ask, like, especially when his eyes looked, because he had really light blue eyes. So even if he came home super tired, like his eyes are red, and I'd be like, are you high? And I'm like looking in his eyes, and he'd always tell me like, you asking me that makes me want to go get high. And I'm like, that's not fair.
That's not fair.
It's really not fair.
Right.
Like I'm home here, like, and we did end up having a third kid. So I'm home watching our kids, and I like, that is a thought in my mind every day. Like, is he coming home?
Right.
Like,
did he ever go to any kind of treatment or therapy?
So he did before we met. He went to a couple rehabs, I think.
Okay.
Therapy was really hard for me to get him to go to. So like I said, his dad died when he was 5. And I think he had not so great experiences with therapy as a child. And I think he was kind of like forced to go and like do things. So he would always be like, no, it's like my decision and I don't want to.
Right.
So towards the end of his life, like actually in October of 2022, so a few months before he died, I did finally get him to say yes to couples therapy. It was through BetterHelp, so it was over the phone.
Okay.
But I was like, it's fine. It's better than
like,
nothing.
It's something. Yeah.
And it did help him. After we did the couples therapy, I was like, I think it's a good idea if like you try and do it on your own because you have a lot of trauma, like just yourself. And he did. He started going.
Now during this time when he's like using, not using, and you're having, you're on your third baby, was he there for their births? Was he attentive?
Yes.
In all those ways?
Yes.
With the kids?
Yes. So Eric was the best dad ever. And that is one thing that everyone will tell you, like regardless of, like if he was using or not. I mean, the whole time he's using, like, and it wasn't a lot, like months at a time. Like we'd still be around, like my parents, I'm telling you, they never knew. And my family never knew. And he was such a high functioning addict.
Yeah.
He was the best dad. Like even in those moments where he was using, like he never, after I caught him that one time, he never would use at home. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. He'd still go drive out and do it. But yeah, he was literally the best dad. And he would always say, like, I want to be the dad that I did not have for these kids. And I always say, like, he was a better parent because he was so patient. Like, I mean, kids can be little shits. And
Right.
he was like, he would never get mad at them. He was like always so patient with them. He was the dad that was on the floor playing Barbies with Emmy for hours. Yeah, he was a really good dad. And that's like the hardest part now is I know what they're missing.
Right.
But those kids were his entire world.
It's such a void that, like, as a parent, because I experienced that too, many years ago, but you just always feel so bad for what they're missing because
Yes.
you knew him as a person, like as a husband, and how he was with you.
Yeah.
You got to see how he was with them, and it's just like you constantly mourn that.
Yeah. Like,
even if there's somebody else.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It's still not their
not the
person. Who your person was.
Yeah.
And it just sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. That's definitely the worst part. And yeah, he was like all about it. He loved being a dad. It was like his favorite thing. And you know how like there's certain things, like, for example, someone will be like, oh, like, do you want to go camping? Like, let's go camping. Okay. And you have like a 2-year-old and a newborn. So you're like, no, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or like doing things that you wouldn't do with babies. Eric would always be like, let's do it. Like, we're not going to let having kids stop us. Like, kids can do these things with us, know?
Right.
And I was like very anxious. I was an anxious mom and I was like afraid of like everything. And he wasn't. He was just like, let's do it. Let's go. Like, he'd go on hikes. He would take them camping. He'd do all these things. And like, he would never, ever, ever let that stop them. He like enjoyed that. He enjoyed having his kids do all the things that he loved. And he would always say, like, I can't wait until they're older and, like, we can do this, this, and that, and I can teach them how to do this, and, like, so excited. He'd always have Emmy in the garage with him, like, doing all the, like, changing the oil, doing, like, switching the tires. Like, I have videos of her, like, wrenching stuff with him, and
thank God you have those.
It was, like... they were always together. Like, it was never like a no, like, this isn't for kids. It was like a yes, come on, like, I'll show you how to do it. And like, it was the best thing ever. And it's funny because like not even a week before he died, I remember we put the kids down for a nap and we were like sitting out on the porch and we were just chit-chatting and I think I said, what's your favorite thing about me? Or he said it, I can't remember. So we're sitting there telling each other our favorite things. And I go, my favorite thing about you is how good of a parent you are. I said, you are so patient and you are so good with them. Like, I just hope to be that way one day because that's like my favorite thing. And that I'm glad I told him. I mean, I constantly told him how much we appreciated him and how much of a good dad he was. But it really was my favorite thing about him. He was so good. So good with the kids.
You probably still struggle all the time with being mad at him.
Yes.
Like, you were all these things.
Yes.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yes. Yeah. So that, someone actually asked me that the other day. Like, anger I feel towards him. And I wouldn't say I feel anger towards him. I feel anger towards other people and situations that kind of let him down as a child.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never, like, I get angry at the fact that, like, you knew what you were doing and you knew that it could kill you, right? Like, you knew that this could happen.
Right.
And we did have so many of those conversations. Like, what am I going to do when you die? Like, when he was deep in his addiction. I'm like, you're going to die and I'm going to be here with these kids. And it was always like, oh my gosh, no. Like, I promise I would never let that happen, like.
So why do you think he thought not me? Kind of like how they all do.
Yes. And that's the thing I was talking to his best friend afterwards because I was like, it just pissed me off how he thought he was untouchable. That's what pissed me off. Because we'd watch things on the news about, this fentanyl epidemic. It's on there and like all these people. And I remember like one time he even made a comment of like something about how they weren't doing it right or something. And I'm like, you think you're untouchable. I was like, it can happen to anybody.
Right.
And so, yes, that is the part that makes me mad, is that he thought it couldn't happen to him.
Right.
But I also do feel very bad for him.
Yeah.
Because I just think
If he would have had more help or guidance or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that also affects me with my kids right now, because I am very probably still crazy. I guess you can call me like that crazy mom, but I can't help but think like, oh my gosh, you know, like my kids are going to be addicts too, you know, like
Right.
I'm so afraid of that.
Yeah.
And so after he died, I was like, I'm not telling them. Like, I went as far as calling my best friend's dad, who's an attorney, and I said, can you please get the autopsy report and like seal it so no one can get it? You know, I don't want anyone to ever see that he died of an overdose, because I'm never going to tell my kids.
Right.
And I guess it was just like,
they're so young.
They're so young. Yeah. And
yeah.
I guess, you know, that's what I was used to, not telling anyone.
Right. Secrets.
So, yeah. And, yeah, that was just like my biggest fear. Like, if they know, they're going to be like, well, dad did it. Like, why can't I, you know?
Right. Well, this is why you shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Because look what happened to dad.
Yeah, but I see my kids and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like super protective over them. And I'm like, my communication is like, we're just so open. And I always want them to tell me their feelings and all these things. And I just wish he would have had the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does. I feel bad. I do feel bad for him.
Right.
Because he was such a good guy. Like, he was an amazing person, an amazing dad. And yeah, I just feel like, you know, he had these demons that he couldn't deal with on his own.
So when he OD'd, had he been actively using, or
No.
he was sober for a while?
Yeah. So the last time he was actively using, and the last detox we went through was on the 4th of July in 2022. Okay. And I remember because our anniversary is on the 5th. So I'm literally, you know, dealing with the detox for our last anniversary we spent together. Yeah, so we go through that. And that time he actually stopped drinking too. So that was the time he quit everything.
Maybe he learned in that one, you know?
Yeah. So we get through that. And also, we actually ended up moving to California in 2021. Because he said it was for business, but I really think it's because he wanted to get away from the people he was around.
Things, yeah.
So we moved back to California, and we moved in with my parents for a little while we found our own place. And so I was pregnant when we moved. I ended up giving birth, you know, in California, living with my parents. And this is how functioning he was as an addict. We're living at my parents' house, and he's using for, I want to say it started in maybe March 2022. So March, April, May, June, July. So yeah, like 5 months. And we're at my parents' house. And my mom works at home, so she's home all the time.
It's amazing how they can become these little, well, usually they lie a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just little chameleons.
Yeah.
They can like blend in. Dan, my husband that you met, I mean, he used to run a entire commercial roofing company on top of skyscrapers and everything, using and just
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, here he is running his business. I mean, super successful, like especially in California because everyone's moving out there.
Right. Right.
So he's making really good money. Um, yeah, they had no idea. And that is another reason why that lasted so long that time was because my parents were always home. So, like, to detox, like, and they didn't know. So we didn't know, like, what, you know.
Yeah.
So for the 4th of July, my parents always leave the country. So that's
Okay.
why we were like, okay, this is it. Like, this is your chance.
So you did it at home again.
Again, yeah.
Ugh.
So every time we did it at home.
Which can be so dangerous.
Yes, yes.
But
And
how
that
do you
time
know?
too,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, and that time too, that last time I remember looking up a whole bunch of rehabs. And yeah, his excuse would be like, what am I going to say to your parents? Like, if I leave for a week, or if I do, like, he was looking into the month rehab. Like, what do I, you know, like, and what am I supposed to do with work? Like, I run my own company and like all this stuff. And so, yeah, it was an option, but we never went that route.
But then you're internalizing all this.
Yes.
And you can't talk to anybody because it's a
horrible.
secret. And wow.
It was so bad. Yeah.
Did this make your depression a lot worse?
Yes. So bad. And it made me crazy. I'm telling you, like, I was crazy. So that
rightfully so,
yeah,
though. Yeah.
That detox was really bad because I'm postpartum, like a few months. I just had our daughter. I'm home with him and all 3 of my kids, and he's like going through a detox. And I remember the first or second day that, like, I think it was the second day that he's like going through it. He like comes out of the room and he's like, oh, I have some stuff, because he had a big box truck. He was like, I have some stuff from the last move that I have to go take to Goodwill. And I said, okay, we'll go with you. Like, all the kids like wanted to round him up. And he was like, no, never mind. I'll just like do it like before my next job or something like that. And I was like, okay. So he waited for me to put all the kids down for a nap. And he goes, oh, I'm going to go do it now, knowing I'm not going to wake the kids up.
No.
And I said, no, you're not. You're not going. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to do it real quick. Goodwill was literally right across the street from my parents' house. So, yeah. And so he was like, yeah, I'm just going to go. And, you know, we're like arguing about it, but he like leaves. And at this point, he's back to an iPhone. So I have his location. And I go to... or he goes to Goodwill. He's taking too long, but his location says he's at Goodwill. But I'm like, something's up. I go to Goodwill and I find his phone in a bush.
Stop.
And I'm so crazy to the point where, like, I mean, how fucking bad of a mom am I that I'm leaving my 3 kids that are sleeping unattended at home.
Right.
And so, yeah, I find his phone in a bush at Goodwill. So at this point, I know where his where his dealer lives, because prior to that, like about a month, I found him. I was like, I knew like the neighborhood this guy lived in, and I knew Eric was using, and I couldn't find him one day and his phone was off. So I literally went in and out of every single street of that neighborhood until I found him. Okay. And I find his truck, I'm banging on the garage door. I'm like, I'm calling the cops. Like, I'm fucking crazy.
So he was just sitting at the dealer's house.
No. So he was at that time, yes, he was just hanging out at the dealer's house. Yeah. So, and I'm like banging on the door, and then like he comes out, he's like, let's go. And like he picks me up to go to the car, and I'm like trying to fight the dealer. I'm like running back into the house. He's like, stop it. Like, you're embarrassing me. I'm like, you're embarrassing me.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, like, I can't get a hold of you, and I'm literally crazy going through this neighborhood, like every single street until I see your car.
Yeah.
And then you have me like banging on, and he was like, he has a grandma that lives here. This is this grandma's house. You're gonna get her in trouble. I was like,
wow, he's doing all that in his granny's house.
Yeah. I was like,
Wow.
I don't care about that. I
Right.
don't. Like,
Right.
why is he doing this shit then? And why is he selling, you know?
You're
Like,
worried about me when
yeah.
he's selling drugs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sitting there doing drugs.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So back to that time, the Goodwill time. So I knew where the dealer lived. So I start driving that way, and he's parked at the gas station. I see him. So I turn into the gas station. He's waiting for his dealer. And he sees me, and it's like he's seen a ghost. And I was like, leave your car here, leave it all here, get in the car, we are going home. Like, I was fucking pissed off.
Right.
And at that point, I think I had got there like right before his dealer was getting there to meet him. But
Did he
yeah,
listen to
he
you?
did. He got in the car, and I remember he started crying on the way home, and he's like, like, you don't deserve me. You deserve better. Like, all this shit that I put you through, like, all this stuff. Cause I'm like crying. I'm like angry. I'm like, look at, like, I literally left her fucking kids at home.
Right.
Like, that's not normal. That's not okay.
Right.
Like, this is driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And he was like crying. He was like, if you weren't as crazy as you were, I think I would have been dead by now. I remember him telling me that. And I'm like, but I shouldn't be.
Yeah, you're like, that's not what I want to hear right now.
That.
Yeah, it's not making me feel better.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that time we got through the detox finally. Oh my God. And I was drug testing him, constantly drug testing him.
Did you tell him, like, listen, I'm gone, our kids are fucking gone.
Yes.
If you don't stop this time.
Yes, I did. So, and he changed. Like, I mean, he was really trying. Because like I said, he stopped drinking. Like, it was, I mean, I think that was the best we've ever been in our marriage. And, yeah, we like got our own place after that. We finally found a house that we were renting. We moved in. Like, everything was just, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I miss, you know?
Finally,
like,
yes.
And he wouldn't fight me on the drug test. He wouldn't, like, you know, like, it was just a thing that he knew that I needed for, you know. So yeah, we were doing good. And, 2023 comes in, and 23 was his favorite number. And I remember him, like, on New Year's, the clock struck 12, and he's like, this is our year. Like, this is going to be our year. We've been doing so good. Like, the business is doing good, all this stuff, you know. And so fast forward to February, and I had gotten me and my daughter Disneyland passes because we were about an hour away. So I am on my way to my mom's house to drop off my son because he didn't have a pass, and I just didn't want to take him. So to drop off my son and my youngest, and me and Emmy are on our way to Disneyland, and then I get a phone call from Eric, and he's like, I need you to get home right now. And I was like, why? He's like, just please come home right now. And I was like, okay. Like, I was scared. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, like, we rush back home, and he's high. And he gives me his drugs. He's like, I don't want to do this. He's like, I can't get myself to flush them down the toilet, but please, will you flush them down the toilet? So I do. And
was it like soon as you left, he went and got shit?
Yeah. So that was February, like the beginning of February. Obviously now I'm like hyper alert and drug testing and not trusting you.
Right.
And all these things. And a week before he died, he had a job out to Arizona again. And at this point, I could just tell by talking to him that he's high, you know?
Right.
And I remember he was like with his best friend, Connor, in Arizona. And like, I'm just like telling him, like, you need to get home because I know the dealer he used to pick up from here, like, he was going to get more. And like this point, I'm crazy again, like calling and I'm like calling Connor, and Connor's like, dude, like, stop, he's not high. Like, I'm with him. And I'm like, he is fucking high. Like, I know he is.
Right.
And I was like, it was so bad to the point where I even called his mom because his mom lived in Arizona, and I'm like telling her, but no one like, what can you do? I guess, like, what can you do? And so at that point, I told him, I was like, don't come home if you're not going to stop. I said, I will divorce you. We will be getting a divorce, and you will not be seeing your kids.
Have you ever told him that at that point? Did you ever tell him that before?
I did before, like the last, but it wasn't like that. It was like, I don't want to get a divorce, and I don't want to take the kids from you type of thing. Like, it wasn't, I was never like, okay,
this is what's happening.
This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like fucking pissed off. And I'm like, this is it. Like, I've been doing this for too long. You're literally lying to me. Like, I know you're high.
Right.
And I said, if you don't stop, if you're not going to stop, do not come home. We are getting a divorce, and you will not be seeing your kids until you are clean.
Right.
And he was like, you can't take the kids from me, blah, 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 all this stuff. Like, I said, you're not going to see them. Like, we're not going to have split custody. I'm not going to leave you with the kids when you're doing this shit.
Right.
And he was like, fine, I'm going to call blank, our friend's dad, who's an attorney. Mm-hmm. And I said, good. I said, call him, but make sure you tell him that you are doing fentanyl with your children in the house, and see what he says. I said, and then you get back to me.
The fact that he was even doing that around the kids, I mean, I'm sure he knew.
Yes.
Like, even to touch someone, you have, oh God.
Yeah.
So many horror stories about that. And
it's so funny because I never once thought about that until after he died. It was never like a thought in my mind, like that I was kind of like afraid. Especially if you didn't know about it, you wouldn't know that. Yeah. And so he did. He called his friend's dad, but he didn't answer. He did end up leaving a voicemail and wanting him to call back. But then that night he called me. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm coming home. I'm done. You're right. I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. So he came back.
But at this point, are you like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yes.
You always say this.
Yes.
Or do you still hope it's this time?
Yes. I think that's the hard part, like... he wants to stop, mm-hmm. And I know Eric. I know, he does have a big heart. I do know that he's fucked up. He had a fucked up childhood. Yeah. I know all the bad things that have happened to him. And, I feel like maybe I did enable for a while because I couldn't get myself to be a bitch and be like ultimatums earlier on. I couldn't do it. Yeah, but
you were struggling too.
I was struggling, but I felt so bad because I feel like he's been abandoned and alone his whole life. I couldn't do that to him.
Right.
And I would constantly tell him all the time, I'd be like, I'm not against you. I am on your side, but I need you to be honest with me. I can't help you when you're telling me that you're not getting high and you're not doing this. I said, I know you're used to that, but I want this as bad as you do. I want you to be clean and here for your kids just as bad as you do.
Right.
And I think that's why it was so hard for me to be like, no, I'm leaving, because I saw him trying.
Yeah.
And I know more than anything, he wanted to be there for his kids.
Right.
And I was like, who am I to take that from him?
Yeah.
So I think that, at the end, it was... yeah, I was tired. I didn't know what to do because obviously what I've been doing wasn't working. We have 3 kids now. I can't just, Emmy's 4.5. She's getting to the age where she's going to start noticing things. And yeah, it was hard. So yeah, but he, of course, I'm like, okay, let's try again.
Let's do it again. Yeah.
And, yeah, he comes home, and again, we're doing the drug test twice a day now. So
your anxiety had to be insane.
It was
too.
bad.
Yeah.
It was so bad. I wasn't sleeping. I mean, oh my gosh, it was horrible. But yeah, 2 weeks later is when he died. And I remember...
How was he during the 2 weeks?
Good. Clean.
Just clean again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clean. And so it was always usually on trips that would start it, like his out-of-state moves, because he'd be like, she's not with me, you know?
Right.
So I can do it.
Right.
And this time, so he had an out-of-state move to Arizona. And he had about 4 in a row. So he had an out-of-state move to Arizona, and then if he hadn't died, he would have came home for a day, gone to Texas, came back, I think again for a day, had a job out here to Nashville, back, and then another job to Texas. So literally the whole month of April was like he was not going to be home.
Right.
So yeah, it's a thought in my mind because, you know, like he does this every time.
Yeah.
He leaves. So I remember Saturday morning, he's getting ready to leave, you know, like he gives Emmy a kiss, all the kids a kiss, and he tells Emmy, like, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back. Like, I will be back tomorrow. And so he goes to load up the truck, and usually when he would leave on these trips, I'd go to my parents' house because I didn't like being alone. So they were like about an hour away. I'm at my parents' house, and my mom's phone rings, and it's Eric. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I answered it. And I was like, hey. And he was like, what are you doing at your mom's? Like, just like super sketched out. And I was like, hanging out, like with the kids. I don't know. I just didn't want to be home alone. He was like, oh, he's like, well, my truck, because he had a big box truck. He's like, it's overweight because when you do long distance, you have to stop at weigh stations. And so he went to check the weight before he left. And he was right by my mom's house. That was like his way to get out to go to Arizona. And he was like, I just was wondering if I could come to her house and drop some things off. So like to put the weight down.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, we're here, you know? And so he comes over, and I remember going to the garage, and I open the garage door, and I look at him, and he's high. And I said, so you had to go visit your friend today? And he was like, I'm not doing this right now. I'm not high. Like, you know, just all these things like BS. And for whatever reason, I was like, okay, like whatever you say, you know?
Yeah.
And I let it go. And I'm like, okay. So I start helping him like unload some stuff, and we're just talking like, you know, no other. And yeah, he gives me a hug. He's like, I love you. Gives me a kiss, and he says, I'll see you tomorrow. And I remember he was like, oh, when he got there, he was like, don't tell the kids, because I gotta go. Like, I, you know, have to make this quick. There. Like, I'll see them tomorrow. It's okay. So yeah, he leaves. I mean, we leave on like good terms. And he usually calls me after he gets to like his destination. You know, he'll take a shower, get in bed, and then he'll call me and be like, I'm here. So he drives about halfway to Arizona, and I have his location. So I like see that he arrived at the hotel, and I just remember like having a feeling. Like I said, I feel like I'm really in tune with everything, and I was like so uneasy, and I was like, I'm not gonna call him. Like, he didn't call me, and I was like kind of iffy about that, but I was like, I just don't, it's fine. Like, he probably had a busy day and fell asleep. And I had posted something on Instagram, like a reel about us, and he reposted it to his stories like 15 minutes before that. So I was like, he just fell asleep, whatever. Right. He's still at the hotel. The next morning I wake up and I just feel like shit. I'm like, oh my gosh, like something was, like my stomach was hurt. It was just bad. It was bad. And it's like I wake up around like 9:30. And usually with these jobs, he'll leave at like 6:30 in the morning. Because, I mean, he's an early riser, and he has, you know, to get to his destination. I look at his location, and he's still at the hotel. So I like call his phone. He's not answering. And I'm like, you know what, he probably just left it. Like, it's fine. Like, you know, at the same time,
You're like, I'm trying not to be
yes,
crazy.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do have my 3 kids there. So, like, I have to go downstairs. I have to feed them. I have to, you know, like, I have to mom.
Right.
And a little bit of time goes by and he didn't answer me. And I text Connor and I said, have you heard from Eric, or are you with Eric? And he said, no, he's not answering my calls. And I text him back and I said, I think he overdosed and he's dead. And he goes, don't say that. And it was just to feel like why else wouldn't you be answering me?
Right.
You know, like, why?
Right.
And I'm calling the hotel. They're not answering me. And yeah, I text Cole, the guy who was supposed to meet to unload, like, his worker it's his friend. It's one of his best friends, but he works with him. And I said, have you heard from Eric? He's like, no, like, I'm waiting, you know, like, the customer is, you know, like, I don't know where he is. I was like, fuck. And still calling the hotel. I mean, I feel like I was calling for hours and literally no one answered me. And my mom, I'm like downstairs and we're about to put the kids to sleep, the 2 younger ones. And my mom was like, do you want to go to some store with me? And I said, yes. But I said, just give me a second. I go upstairs. I was like putting my shoes on and then I'm like, I need to call again. What the fuck?
Right.
And I call again. I call the hotel. His phone is off at this point now. So then I'm like, that's so weird because it was ringing, and now it's not ringing. So what's going on? And I call the hotel and I'm like, what time is your checkout? It's like 2:00 at this point. So literally all fucking day I've just been. And I'm like, what time is your checkout? And she's like, are you calling for Eric Sansam? Yeah, immediately. And I was like, yes. Did he check out? I'm like, I've been calling you guys and I've been calling him. And she was like, no, so we checkouts at 10 and we went to his room and we were like banging on the door and we tried to open it and the deadbolt lock was on. So we just charged him another night. Oh, I'm like, at that point, you know, I lose it and I'm like yelling at her over the phone. And I was like, he's an addict. He's probably dead. You need to call the police and get that fucking door open.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like yelling this, running down the stairs. And my mom and my dad and Emmy, my oldest, are sitting on the couch. And I like run downstairs and I run around the corner out of the garage. I was like gonna get in the car and fucking drive there.
Right.
And the lady on the phone too, she was like, oh my gosh, like, she says, I wish you would have called me sooner. I said, I've been fucking calling you guys since I woke up this morning. I wish you would have picked up sooner.
Right.
Like, I could not believe she said that to me. And then she was like, well, I need to call you back. And she like hung up to, you know, call the police. And I'm like, my parents obviously follow me outside and they're like, who are you talking about?
Right.
Who are you talking about? Who's an addict? Who's dead? Like all this stuff because they don't know. They have no idea. So here I am. Like then my dad sits me down in the garage, like, because I'm freaking the fuck out at this point. And yeah, they're like asking me these questions and I'm like, Eric, he's an addict and he's dead. Like I just know he's dead. And I look up and or like my mom asks me something and I just remember yelling like, he's dead. And I look up and Emmy's standing right there.
Oh God.
And I was like, oh my God, I need to fucking get my shit together. And my mom like took her inside. And when I was like saying that, like when my dad was like asking me like, who are you talking about? Like who's an addict? And I don't think she was there, but again, I don't know. It was like all a blur.
Right.
And you know, my dad's like there trying to calm me down and I'm like, I need to call back. Like this bitch doesn't have my number. Like she just hung up on me. Yeah. Like, you know, and so yeah, we called back. My dad called back for me and gave them my phone number. And she said how she called, so like when the officer's there, she'll have them call us back. And I remember I'm like outside with my dad, and I feel like it took forever. Like it was
Yeah.
like a million years. And I called Connor and I told him the situation. And I called his mom and I told her the situation, not knowing yet because they didn't call me back yet. And yeah, she calls me back. And my dad is, my poor dad. Like imagine, you don't want your kids to hurt.
Right.
So he's like trying to answer the phone for me. And I remember I'm like, Dad, you can't save me from this. It's like, you can't, there's nothing you can do. So give me the phone. And he gives me the phone and it's the officer. And she's like, who am I speaking to? And is this his wife? And I was like, yes, this is Adriana. And I was like, are you with him? And she's like, yes, I am. And I'm like, okay, like, where is he? What is he doing? Like, where is he? Is he alive? Like, where is, and I'm just like asking over and over. So I'm not giving her room to talk. And then at the end, I'm like, is he dead? And there's just like what felt like forever. And she's like, yes, ma'am, he's deceased. And I just lose it. And I was like, I have 3 kids. What the fuck am I supposed to do?
Right.
And I think she started crying. You could hear it that she, and yeah, at that point, it's like kind of a blur. But I was like, okay, like I'm driving down there. Like I'm going. I want to see him because he was just here. Like,
Yeah.
And she's like, no, like the funeral home's going to come and transfer him and like all this stuff. And at this point, obviously, they still didn't tell me, like, because I think I even asked, or like later on, she like called me back. I can't remember. It was all a blur, but I was like, can you tell me like anything? Like, where was he? Was he laying on the bed? Was he like, what was he doing? Was he in the bathroom? Did you find anything? Were there drugs? Were there anything,
Right.
And she was like, I can't tell you any of that. And I was like, why? She's like, she wouldn't tell me. And I was like, that's so fucking weird. So
Yeah.
the next day, they have him at a funeral home it was in Arizona. He had just crossed the border. So he died in Arizona. And after like telling my mother-in-law and stuff, she knew someone who like ran a funeral home where we used to live. And she was like, I know they'll take care of him. Like, if you want to take him to that funeral home, like, it's people we know, so they'll take care of him and, like, be respectful and stuff. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like, And so I called the funeral home that like, went to pick him up to tell them that, like, to give the transfer or whatever. And I'm like asking the lady, I'm like, so were you there? Like, were you the one that picked him up? And she was like, oh no, this other guy, whatever. And I was like,
Like you just want to
okay,
know
yeah.
at this
And
point.
yeah. And at this point, so that all happened on a Sunday. And like by the time, it's all over and I like find out it's really like 6:00, I think. So I was like telling her, like I'm gonna drive out there, and she's like, no, like there's no point, but you can drive in tomorrow to pick up his belongings and the box truck that's full of a customer's things. Yeah. So my dad and my brother go with me and they drive me out there. And we go pick up all his stuff. And so that's when I called the funeral home and I'm like asking her questions like, where was he? Like, can you tell me where they found him? Like, were there any drugs, any of this stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, let me call you back. I'll call him and ask him, the guy that went to pick him up. So then she calls me back and she's like, yeah, so she said that he was in the bathroom and he was found in like the praying position, and that it looked like he had like stuff coming out of his mouth. And I was like what, like foam? She was like, yeah, I think like he was vomiting. And I was like, okay, so were there drugs in the bathroom? And she was like, let me call you back. And I'm like, okay. And then
As time is
yeah.
slowly
Yes.
ticking.
Yes.
Ugh.
And then the officer calls me. And she goes, so I've heard you've been like calling around and asking questions. And I'm like, yeah, because you didn't fucking tell me anything.
Right.
You know, like I didn't say it like that, but I'm like, yeah, you didn't tell me. Like my husband just died.
Right.
I would like a little bit of information, you know,
Yeah.
like, I mean,
which is very reasonable.
yes.
Yeah.
Like, and she told me, she was like, okay, like we, you know, he was in the bathroom. He was found in a praying position. We did find paraphernalia. There was like a white rock-like substance on the counter. She obviously didn't know what it was yet because they, you know, they took it in. Yeah, tested it. And she was like, so it does look like an overdose. And I was like, thank you. That's all I wanted to know, you know? And yeah, so I go and pick up his stuff. I go get the box truck. One of my uncles went to like pick it up and drive it. I mean, my family really rallied behind me when I needed them, so that I'm forever grateful for that. But yeah, I think I was in shock, you know, like this can't be real.
Right.
And I just remember like I was like, I need to see his body. Like that I just need to see it because I don't believe any of this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got to see his body a few days after. It was on a Thursday. That Thursday afterwards. And
did you have like, I remember when my first husband died. It was right around Christmas, New Year, right after Christmas, but between that and New Year's.
mm-hmm.
And I just remember kind of like, you're like, I want to see him.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't seen him since they took him off life support.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the weirdest, most Twilight Zone type of thing to where I was kind of excited. I wanted to see him again. You know, like I needed to see him.
Yes.
But it was like weird. I like couldn't wait.
Yes.
But
that's how I was.
Yeah.
And I was so like, yeah, it felt like forever. Because, you know, like this happened on Sunday. I don't get to see him till Thursday.
Right.
And I remember too, like his mom kind of tried to talk me out of it because she has been through something similar. Her husband died when she was in her 30s.
Right.
And she didn't try and talk me out of it, but she was just warning me. She was like, I did see my husband when he died, and like it kind of haunts her till this day. Right. But also at the same time, he died of cancer, and they get very like they retain a lot of fluid, and so they get very bloated.
Right.
So that is something she told me too. Like he didn't even like I didn't recognize him, and I just wish that wasn't like, you know, the last thing that I like remember.
But cancer is different. Like,
yes.
Not that the death is weighed any differently.
Right.
But when someone dies of cancer, you know. Kind of have time to prepare. Not like a sudden they're gone and never said bye or anything like that.
Yep. And that's exactly what I said. I said, no, I just saw Eric and he was fine. Perfectly healthy.
Right.
If I don't see him, I would probably go the rest of my life thinking he was still alive out there. Like there's no way I could have not seen him. Right. Like I was like, no, like this is a sick joke in my mind still. So it's not going to be real until I see him. And so I was like, there's no way. Like, and I remember my dad too, again, like he's worried about me and he's like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes. And like, when I make up my mind, I make up my mind. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Right. And I'm so thankful that I did because it did put my mind at ease. And also like, it was the weirdest feeling when I saw him. Like I felt him, like I felt his presence around me. But I also felt like this peace, like so much peace. And it made me so sad because I'm like, this man has been fighting his whole life. And I feel like this is the most peaceful he's ever been. Like, it's so weird to say because he's dead. Yeah. But
it's not though.
Yeah.
It's not weird.
It's just he really has been fighting so many demons for so long and he struggled and struggled and struggled. And so that did like make me feel a little better. But man, it was hard. Like I remember touching like every inch of his body, just kissing him. I'm like, maybe I'll kiss him back to life, you know? I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it was
Yeah. And you're still bargaining and still, I'll do this and
yes.
just God or whatever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whatever could
Yeah.
just make him come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was I mean, I'm so glad I saw him, but it was hard to
For
leave.
sure.
Like I did not want to leave. But yeah, and then after that, I cremated him.
So did the kids never saw him?
No.
Okay.
No. And I don't think I would have he looked good. Like he did
Yeah.
look good. I have a picture of him, so later on if they want to see that they
Right.
can.
They're so little.
They're so little.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I didn't want that to be like, I don't know. My son was 2.5. So he didn't understand. He didn't get it. He
Right.
literally asked me like every single day for a year if dad was coming home, and I'd have to repeat, he's dead. He's dead. He's every single day. And we'd like see a box truck and be like, I told you, daddy's coming home. He's on his way. And he'd be like, no, he's dead. Like it was bad. Yeah. So
Poor
if
little guy.
I would have taken my son, he wouldn't have understood that.
Right.
He would have tried to wake daddy up
Thinking
and
he's
be
sleeping.
like, what the hell, you know? And Emmy was like this with her dad. So I did not want to. I feel like that would have absolutely crushed her soul. So I couldn't do it.
How did you tell them?
So Emmy, when I came back, so Monday I went to like go pick up, you know, his stuff, and we went back to like Arizona where we were from. And I was really just waiting for the funeral home to tell me when I can see him. So on Monday, they were like, maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, like, we'll let you know tomorrow. So they call me Tuesday morning and they're like, okay, Thursday. So I'm like, okay, I have to go back home. Like, I can't just leave my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point too, like, Emmy's calling me and she's like, Mom, Dad's coming home today. He told me. Like, but he's not answering the phone. And I have his phone at this point. She was like, can we call him? Like, please, can we call him? And, you know, God. And I was like, okay, I mean, we can call him, but he might not answer because he's working, you know, but,
right.
So here I am calling my husband's phone on three-way, my dead husband. I have his phone knowing he's not going to answer. And we get to voicemail and I have to mute myself because I like start wailing. Like I lose it because my daughter is talking to her daddy that she still thinks is alive. And she's like, I'm so excited to see you tonight. Like saying these things that they're going to do and like all this stuff. And she's like, I just love you so much. And yeah, you know, like I at that point, what was I going to do? I'm not going to tell her over the phone.
Right.
You know,
right.
Like that's not a conversation to have over the phone.
Not to mention, you probably don't even have a clue of how you're going to even say it.
Yeah. And that was the reason why I didn't tell them that night too, that Sunday night, because I didn't I just remember telling my dad, like, what do I say to these kids? Like, right. What do I say? What's right? What's wrong? Like, I don't want to fuck them up, right. You know? And I remember my dad too, he was like, just don't tell them tonight. Like, I'll help you. We can look into it. He even said, like, my friend is a therapist. Like, I'll call him. Like, you know, just right. Let's think about it.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't, you know, like what, and they're so young. So yeah, that, and you know, my daughter, I think she's also really in tune with her emotions because, you know, Sunday after he died, like my dad called my sister and they came over. My sister and her fiance came over and they're really good with my kids. They're so good. So they were kind of helping to watch them, but obviously my kids are wanting me too. So here I am with my kids, like faking a smile and like playing with them. And then I remember like, oh, my husband's dead, like your dad's never going to see you do this again. So then right. I lose it. I have to run to the bathroom and I'm like crying, but obviously she can tell that I've been crying.
Right.
And I remember at the end of the night, she like comes and sits on my lap and she's like hugging me and she's like, Mommy, is Daddy sick? And I was like, no, baby, no, he's fine. And that always, I think, will eat me alive because I lied straight to her face. you
Yeah.
know? But just like as I was saying, I didn't know what to say at that point. I did not know what to say. So, yeah, also she leaves that voicemail. So we go back home Tuesday morning, and I get home and she runs up to me. She's like, "Where's daddy?" Like, when I tell you that they were like, he would take her to work sometimes. Like, they were so attached by the hip. She was obsessed, like daddy's girl
Daddy's little
to
girl.
the
Oh.
extreme. And he was the same way. Like, he would want to take her everywhere. They would go golfing literally every day. They went to the,
Really?
yes, like they were together every single day, all day. It was like the cutest relationship ever. And so, yeah, she like runs up to me. She's like, "Where's daddy? He was supposed to be here yesterday. Like, where is he? Is he home?" Because we're at my parents' house. So she's thinking dad's at home at our
Right.
house. She's like, "Let's go," you know? And I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "Let's go upstairs real quick." And I did not want anyone to be around me. When I told her, I just wanted it to be me. And so we go up there, and she's like really excited. And I sit down and I said, "I have something really sad to tell you." And she like looks at me confused. And I said, "Daddy is not coming home. Daddy's dead," which means his heart stopped beating. His body is no longer working. He can't eat. He can't see. He can't talk. You know, she's 4.5. So I'm trying to explain it in a way
Get that
where
level.
she knows that he can't do anything, you know? I'm like,
Right.
so he's not breathing. He's not. And she looks at me and she's like, "Well, how long is he going to be dead for?" And I lost it. And I was like, "No."
The innocence.
Yeah. It's like it's not like that, you know, like when someone dies, unfortunately, they can't come back. Um and she was like kind of confused, but like kind of understood. And for a while, like every day too, like I remember a couple weeks after that, she was like, "Mom, I know what you're gonna say, and I know you're gonna say that he can't come back, but I think if we go to the grocery store for long enough and we give him time, he'll be here when we get back." You know? So like just constantly having to repeat to my kids that
Right.
their dad's dead.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things, because I was frantically like looking at how to explain to a child. And that was like the number one thing I read over and over again, was that you have to say the word dead.
Yeah.
You can't say he passed away. You can't say
Right.
he fell asleep and didn't wake up. You can't,
Right.
because they're so innocent already. Like
Mm-hmm.
the innocence is there.
Right.
So then they're going to be afraid to go to bed and not wake up,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Like,
Right.
and so,
I mean, even when you tell adults,
yes.
you know, they have to say, you know, they're dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't the thought of all that, you just can't process
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But people know dead means
Yes.
dead.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at 4.5.
Yeah. So, and then he died March 26th. And I mean, yeah, she would constantly say things like that. But I do remember one time too, it was his birthday in May. So a couple months have passed. And she wakes up super excited. She's like, "Mom, today is Dad's birthday. It's a very special day. So I think that we can be able to drive to heaven just to say happy birthday."
Oh, God.
Yeah. And yeah, just the innocent, seeing the innocence slip away from her, I think has been the hardest thing.
Right.
With this whole thing, because she's not like a normal 6.5-year-old, like, and
Right.
anyone will tell you that she's so mature for her age. And I'm like, but that's not fair.
Right.
Because she
so much stolen from
so
them.
much
Yeah.
stolen from her. And she, like, I mean, you know, after he died, I was not in, like, I could barely take care of myself. Like, my parents helped me so much with my kids, and I feel like she probably felt like she had to step up and watch her younger siblings. So yeah, it sucks. I do feel so bad for her, and I just feel like she knows so much pain that a child should never,
Right.
ever, ever feel.
Right.
Yeah. That's been the hardest part, I think, in this whole process, is not just grieving myself, but like grieving for my kids, because you don't want them to hurt, but there's literally nothing you can do,
Right.
you know?
I mean, I still, you know, and everybody says, oh, time will heal, that, you know, all that shit. But even me, I'm going on 24 years since my first husband died. I still will cry,
Yeah.
even like when I see my grandkids.
Yeah.
Um,
Because he doesn't get to experience that.
yes, and how much they're missing out. Like, because he was so amazing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just, and then Kenna, you know, my youngest grew up, like, well, she was 6 months, Chelsea was 6 years old.
Yeah.
And it's just every year, every holiday, every special moment, like 20 some years
Yeah.
later, and I'm remarried, everything, I still, it's like in my throat,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like it knocks the wind out of you for a minute, and you're just like, tears will just flow.
Yeah. I was just talking to another widow friend about that, because, you know, like, time goes on and people just expect you to be better, which maybe to an extent, you know, like, it's easier to live with, or not easier, but it's more,
Yeah.
you know, like, you've been living it for so long, so maybe you're a little used to it more. But I don't think, the thing that people don't understand, especially when you do have children with that person, is it's constant. Like, for example, Emmy had her kindergarten graduation the other day, and I'm like, fuck, like, everyone's here with their mom and dad, and your dad's missing this, you know? Like,
Right.
I'm sure, like, high school graduations, it's the
Right.
same thing. It, like,
Right.
comes back,
Every
and
time.
people, like it just happened yesterday,
Right.
and people don't get that have not gone through that.
Exactly.
They'll
It's the
be like,
people.
yeah,
Yeah. Like, shouldn't she be over this by
yes,
now?
exactly.
Wow. She gets really emotional.
Yeah.
No, it's
Because
just, it's real life.
because this is the first time this is happening, and he's not here for that.
Right.
And he should be. Like,
Right.
you know, all of this that they're missing out on, it's like the tiniest little things that people don't realize. It's like, you know, like, our joy is tainted by grief no
Mm-hmm.
matter what we do.
Right.
You know, like, we're
Right.
so happy for this, but it's like, fuck, like, he should be
Right.
here.
You
And
feel bad
that
for him,
sucks.
and then you feel bad for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing I feel like people don't understand. Like, no matter how much time has gone by, there are still so many moments, little moments, where you're like, they're missing this.
I can attest. 20 some years
Yeah.
later, it can still feel like yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, even his birthday, all the things. Like, it just. And the judgmental people out there are the ones that drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They have no clue. You wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but it's like, you're like, God, have some empathy. Like, have
Mhm.
some understanding.
Yeah.
Because they do not
No.
understand.
There's so many. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, it used to bother me a lot, but then I started, like, you know, like, especially when I came out about, like, dating and stuff.
Oh, the judgments.
Yes.
Like, you know, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I remember there was this one lady, she was like, oh my gosh, like, 9 months. I hope my husband can wait a little longer when I die.
It's really easy to say.
Yeah.
When you haven't
Yeah.
walked it.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, you know what? How lucky are you to not know?
Yeah.
And I hope you never do. Like, even though you're so nasty.
Well, girl, you're better than me. I was like at 6 months, and he was the love of my life, and I had 2 little girls and everything. And at 6 months ish, I started like dating.
Yeah.
And stuff, where, you know, most people think you should wear black for about 10 years and then move on, but they don't feel what you feel. And
that's another thing.
The loneliness is definitely there. It's not like you're trying to replace them.
And you're postpartum. You have a baby.
Yep.
Like, you...
I was too. Yeah. I get it.
That's what I'm like, you know, I've met people that, have started dating 6 months in, 4 months in, or whatever, and now they're happily married, but who are we to judge? Right. Like, we don't know anything about their situation.
It doesn't mean they're still not in pain. It doesn't mean that they don't think about them constantly. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. We don't. Yeah. And that's the thing too, that another thing I don't think people understand is, like, the quiet is so freaking loud. You know, like you go all day without your person, especially when you have
Yeah.
kids, you're doing all these things, you put the kids down to bed by yourself, and then you're there at the end of the night and you're like, well, I'm by myself.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
it's the little things like you would just sit down and watch TV or just like cuddle
Right.
up and go to bed, but you are alone.
Right.
And that loneliness feels like forever.
Right.
It's so, you know, so like, yeah. So what if your husband just died and you're not looking for anything serious, but you don't want to be alone? That's
Right.
okay.
Right. Right.
That's normal.
It
I
is.
feel
Right.
like for humans, that's normal. We
Yes.
want that. And for other people to judge, it's like, whatever. They obviously don't know what it's like.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not
And
at all.
it's so shitty,
But they love to talk shit.
love it. They love
They
it.
do.
They do.
They do. Yeah. God. I just remember over the years, like I even feel for you because it's been what, 3 years?
Two. It was 2 in March.
2 in March.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
yeah,
that's still a lot.
Yeah.
But you're with someone
I
now
am.
that he's a widower,
He
right?
is, yes.
And I think that might be a little different,
Yeah.
like for people, because you both have that loss, you both understand.
Yeah.
And I have seen some of the stuff that you post, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm an outsider looking in. He must really understand that she still talks about him so
Yeah.
much and does all these things because he lived it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where most people would probably be like offended.
Yeah. Or
by
like
it,
jealous.
or yeah,
almost.
like, oh, you just want your dead spouse,
Yeah.
husband, wife, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, because
I
I
can see
always
it.
say, like, if I had never gone through it, I don't think I would be able to date a widower or, you know, like,
Right.
it takes, it's hard, yeah, because
Right.
there is always someone else, especially if they have kids, like, they talk about their mom and my
Right.
kids talk about their dad.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely been a blessing, I would say. Still hard, obviously, and like blending families
Right.
is hard. And, you know, we live in a house with 5 children who are all grieving. So
Let alone you
emotions
don't
are-
get to just worry about the 5 kids that are all rambunctious or whatever.
Yeah.
Just big emotions, big everything.
Very, very big emotions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can get a little rowdy. But I also think it's so nice for them to all have each other and
Right.
know what it's like to lose a parent.
Right. How did they respond to you dating?
So I did not really date. So I think this is where a lot of the judgment comes in. Eric died in March, and I went to something called Camp Widow in July. And it's just like a big conference of
Mhm.
widows. So I went and I met my, like, a core group of friends. Like, they're all younger, within the same age group. And Kevin was one of them. He was someone I met there. And he lived in Los Angeles. So, and at that time I was moved in with my parents in California. So they were about an hour. We were about an hour away. But I connected with him because his girls were around the same age my kids were when their mom died.
Okay.
So I asked him a lot of questions, you know, like he was
Right.
just someone I talked to him every single day, and it was so nice to be able to talk to someone and be so real, you know, like,
Mhm.
you know, just tell it how it is.
Right.
Or I could even be like, well, today I feel like killing myself, or like, you
Right.
know, crazy things like that. And he wouldn't be like, oh my God, you're like
Right.
psycho.
You're freaking nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like that. And so we really became really good friends. And like like Eric just died, there was no feelings there to be had, you know,
Right.
like if I even tried, I couldn't.
Right.
And I don't even think he thought anything of it too. Like, if you ask him, he does say that it was like love at first sight for him, but he was very respectful. So it was like he never, ever, ever tried anything.
Right.
And I would have never known he liked
Yeah.
me like that or anything. I mean, he would even like tell me about like these dates he was going on and these girls he was meeting, you know? So yeah, like we'd hang out.
So you guys were friends first.
We were really good friends. We'd take the kids to Disneyland. We'd hang out. And I ended up moving back to Arizona because I did not want to be in California anymore. That place just holds a lot of trauma. Like I mentioned to you earlier, I tried to attempt. It was in California, and now my husband dies. And yes, he died in Arizona, but you know, we were living in California, and like
Right.
I just was like, I gotta
Right.
go. And now I'm a solo mom, and I have 3 kids. There's no way I can afford to live in California, and I don't want to live with my parents for the rest of my life,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, I moved to Arizona, and it is Thanksgiving week. So I left my kids with my parents while I like moved all my shit in. And Kevin was out there because his late wife has some cousins out there. So they were doing Thanksgiving in Arizona. And I like invited him out to have a drink with me and my cousin and her friends because I was going to go out with them, but I didn't know any of her friends. So I was like, can I invite my friend?
Yeah.
And so he came along. And then I remember going home that night with my cousin and I lose it and I start crying and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I like him. And I was like, I'm a fucking cheater. Like, and
Right.
we've never even done anything. And I'm like
Right.
over here feeling like the worst person in the world.
Right.
And at that point, it was November. So yeah, it had been 8, 9 months since Eric died. And I was like, there's no way like people are going to judge me and like, you know, do all these things. So
Mm-hmm.
we did keep it on the low for a while. Like my parents see right through me, so they knew. I wasn't really afraid of them. I feel like my parents have
Mm-hmm.
always been like my number one supporters.
Right.
So that was okay. I
Thank
think,
God you had them
yeah.
through all
Oh,
that.
yes, absolutely. If I did not have my parents, I literally don't know what I would have done. They basically took over my kids.
Yeah.
And like even till this day, my youngest, she prefers to be with my dad than with me because he raised her. He
Right.
did. She was like 14 months and he like took
It's like
over.
his,
And
yeah,
yeah,
girl. Yeah.
it was like the other day we were talking about cuz Eric had blue eyes. So my son got the blue eyes, of course, and the girls got my eyes.
Uh-huh.
And we're like talking and then she goes, my youngest, she goes, "Yeah, I got my brown eyes from Papa." And I was like, "From Papa?" I was like, "You mean
Right.
from Mom?" She's like, "No, from Papa." And I'm like, "Okay."
Oh, that's
She's like,
amazing
"Screw
though
Mom."
that they love them that
Oh yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have been, oh my gosh, I really don't know what I would do without my parents. I don't.
Yeah.
They are always there to help me. Even after I moved to Arizona, I was like, obviously it's hard, and that was something that like a lot of people were like, why are you moving away from your parents? And I'm like,
Right.
no, you guys aren't going to understand.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know what I'm doing. It's best for me and my kids.
Right.
I'm not like taking them away. My parents are so hands-on. They visit me all the time. I visit them. And even when I did move, I like told them, I said, will you guys still take them once, like a week every month? And they were like, yeah. And none of them were in school yet. So yeah, they still take them. I mean, my kids are there right now. They're
Right.
always there.
You did a lot better than me, girl. I moved probably, what, kind of 50 times? My kids like 50 sometimes because I just could never, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just, I don't want to be here and I don't
Yep.
want to be here for this reason. So now I need to move somewhere else. And this reminds me too much of this. So now I have to go here and I'm going to try here. I'm going to pick a spot in Florida. I'm just going to move there with my kids and everybody's in Ohio. And yeah, like.
But I think that's so normal because, you know, like our life just got ripped and flipped upside down.
Right.
So we don't know what we're doing,
Right.
you know, like,
right.
If I had more money, like, because I was a stay-at-home mom, we didn't have life insurance. Like, all I had was what we had in our savings, and then,
Same.
you know, my family made, like, a GoFundMe and stuff. So, but I remember there were times where, like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I want to go. But I think it's also was so hard for me because I do still depend on my parents so much. So I can't be that far from them. You know, like they basically are the other parent because I can't do it. So, but yeah. And so yeah, back to Kevin. I hid it for a while and then people just like started finding out. And then I was like, you know what, fuck it. And then that was around the same time I started sharing that Eric died of an overdose. So it was like double whammy.
Okay, so you didn't share it until then. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and people forget, like, you know, I think we talked earlier a little bit about just when all of that's over. Like, you have the funeral and you're the widow, and then
Mhm.
your kids just lost their dad. When it's over, and I always call it like when the show's over, where
Mhm.
everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to do this. I'm going
Yes.
to do that,
Yes.
and we'll always love you. And if you
Mhm.
ever need anything." But I think people tend to forget when someone dies, and that's your immediate family or your person, that when you go back home, you have to figure out a new normal while everybody else goes back to their life
Yep.
just the way it was.
Mhm.
And I think I always try to think of people like after funerals and stuff,
Yeah.
how they're probably feeling,
Yeah.
and you're like so alone, and then you have idle time. And me, I was always overachiever. I
Yeah.
have to do all these things, and I can't have idle time
Yeah.
because then I think too much, then I get in my head,
Yeah.
and then I spiral, and then
Yeah.
depression, and just it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was me. Like, I literally spiraled every single freaking day because, yeah, I was so depressed and I was in bed and I did contemplate suicide every single day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
every single day. I was like, okay, and it got to the point where I even wrote letters to
Mm-hmm.
my children. I wrote letters to my parents, letting them know, that I like what I wanted for my kids in the future. And yeah, it did. It got down to that point.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, one day I was going through Eric's stuff in his desk, and this day was like, I'd say the worst day. And my kids weren't home with me because my parents would always watch them. And they would take them home. My mom has an in-home daycare. That's what she does for work.
Okay.
So she would take them, and we lived about an hour away. But after work, they would both drive back to my house so I wouldn't sleep alone. Like that, when I say my parents were there, they were
Oh,
like, even though I told them, like, it's fine, I don't need anybody. Like,
right.
so they would drive an hour every day to come sleep with me, or at the house. And then the next morning, my mom would have to wake up at like 4 or 5 because there's traffic, go back to work. And they did that for months, and never once said anything or made me feel bad about it
Right.
or anything like that.
Right.
And so one day I was at my house and, no one else is there. And I was like, I think today is the day. Like, I don't want to be here. And I'm going through Eric's stuff, and there's this thing that they do in AA called like the Just for Today prayer. Have you heard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Eric would do that a lot when he was sober or like trying to stay sober. He'd be
Right.
like, okay, just for today, I'm not going to smoke heroin. Just for today. And
Right.
then tomorrow comes and I'll
Right.
reevaluate tomorrow. And he's the one that told me about that. And yeah, he would do it a lot. So like when he was struggling, I remember I'd be like, just for today, like, let's just stay sober just for today. And then you can smoke or do all the drugs you want to do tomorrow,
Right. Right.
So I'm going through the desk and he has an AA book in there, and there's like a piece of paper sticking out of it. And so I open it to the piece of paper, and in his handwriting, it says, just for today. So I took that as a sign of, just for today, don't take your life. And I was like crying, and I felt like it was him like talking to me,
Mm-hmm.
like, just for today, like, you
Mm-hmm.
can do it. You can
Mm-hmm.
do it. So that is what saved me. And, also like thinking about my kids, and I'm like, man, they have one parent that died of an overdose and then another parent that died of suicide. Like, what's that going to do to them?
Right.
Like,
right. It's good that you saw that and you process that way, because I don't think that when we're in it and people don't understand this about suicide, it's usually kind of impulsive.
Yes.
Most times. And we're already in our heads so much and so miserable and just like want it to be over. We want to be with the spouse that died or the person that died. And people will say, well, why don't they think about their kids? Because you don't
think.
It just, you're not thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're just not thinking.
Yeah. I feel
Unless
like
you get that little glimpse of, okay, wait, I don't want to do this to my kids. That's right. I don't. And then you're back to sanity for a moment.
Yeah.
And it just, the cycle keeps going.
Yeah. And I always say, I remember telling my dad too, like, it feels so weird, but I feel like I was prepped for this. Like I was prepped by Eric for his death. And because his dad died at such a young age, death was something we talked about a lot, actually. So like I knew that he wanted to be cremated. I knew he didn't want a funeral. I knew, like, you know, like I
Right.
knew all these things. I knew he wanted me to date. I knew he wanted me to remarry. Like these are things we talked
Right.
about. And I think there's so much, like he told me all about his childhood and things that affected him negatively and things that affected him positively, like after his dad died. So it's so weird because I feel like I know what he would want me to do in certain situations because we
Right.
talked about it.
Right.
So that's what I was like telling my dad one day. I was like, it's so weird because I feel like I was prepped for this because I know what Eric would want me to do in this situation or that situation, or if someone did this to our kids or like that, you
Right.
know, like. So I think that is the reason also why I think about our kids so much, because I don't want them to turn out how Eric did, you
Right.
know, and
Right.
I feel like I know what he would want
Right.
for our kids. So yeah, weird to say, but
And you like want him to be proud of you.
yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you guys moved in together, so it's been like about a year or so now?
Yeah, August will be a year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did the long distance
Okay.
for a while, and you know, at first we were like, we're not going to tell the kids, like, you know, but it's so hard when you're a solo parent and
Right.
you're doing long distance.
Yes.
It's like you have to take your kids.
You gotta take the
with
kids.
you,
Right.
you know, and it was like our kids have met before, so you know, like we're not doing anything, we're not kissing or hugging or doing anything. He's coming over, he's sleeping on the couch, like we're not even in the same room, you know,
Right.
like we're just friends until we weren't, and we kind of like sat down and just, I mean, my kids were so young, so it's not even like, I think his oldest was really the one that could really understand like what was
Right.
happening. But yeah, and then we started like going on little trips together, and then yeah, we had to decide fairly quickly, like, is this what we want, or
Right. Like where's it going?
yeah, like what are we doing?
Right.
So yeah, that's when we were like, okay, let's do it, let's move in. So we were deciding on Arizona and California, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to go back to California.
Right. Right.
But no, we were weighing like both options and seeing what was better for us. And yeah, he came to Arizona. We just bought our house in November.
Yay.
Yeah.
And the kids are adjusting pretty well?
Yeah, I'd say it's harder for his oldest because she's 10. So, you know, she was already like, she had friends and all that.
Yeah.
So moving schools and stuff has been hard. But
Had he just lost his wife too when he went to that?
His wife died in December of 2020.
Okay.
So a
little bit longer.
Years,
yeah.
Before. So, yeah, but I mean, they're fine. Like, they get along great. They're like siblings, you know. Sometimes they fight.
Right.
Especially
normal
my youngest
stuff.
two are like, they're 3 and 4. So they're at that age where they just want to bother everyone.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh. I know. You guys all just look so cute. Because I see on social media. Did you start that after he died? To where you got your following?
Yes and no. So in 2020, when I lost my job, I like started doing social media, and it was basically just like motherhood stuff.
Okay.
And I had about like 30,000 followers, I'd say, before he died. But yeah, once I started sharing like my grief and like the vulnerability and all that,
right.
That's where it really blew up.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of hate?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dozens and dozens and dozens of messages a day. And
really?
Oh yeah.
People spend that much? Wow, that many people.
Yeah. Even if I like don't post anything that day, I'll still get shit. Like they just, you know.
That's the one thing that scares the shit. That doesn't scare me because I really don't give a shit what anybody thinks or says anymore, but you do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when people are coming at you, I'm definitely a Taurus. I'm definitely have an attitude. I'll be like, listen here, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll be like, delete, delete,
Yeah.
delete. Or she'll be like,
Yeah.
you know, like,
It's so
but it's
funny.
so hard
It's
not
hard.
to.
It's really hard. So I knew, obviously I was on social media, not to this extent before. So I've dealt with like the trolls and stuff before Eric died. So I knew, like, I even told myself, you know, I'm not gonna really go like public or share stuff until I'm ready to deal with it, because I
Right.
know
To handle it
it'll
fully
it'll
with all
come out.
that. Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It doesn't bother me. Like, there'll be some days where like I'm in a mood and I'm ready to like fight back.
Right.
But for the most part, I'm like, come talk to me in person.
Right.
And see if you'll say that shit to
Yeah,
my face.
exactly.
Because you won't.
Right.
You know? And
I know it's always the people that don't have a profile picture.
fake.
Most,
it's all fake.
Yeah.
You like created this profile
Right.
just to be
Just
a
to
troll.
talk shit.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because Kevin's like that too. Like, he'll be like, what's their username, or like, what? And I'm like, why? It's okay. He's
I'm
like,
gonna tell them.
Yeah, he's like, you're just so much better than me. I'm like, it really just doesn't bother me unless it's, you know, someone we know, or
Exactly.
you know, like,
right.
They're not gonna come. I'm like, whatever. They obviously have their own issues.
Right.
To deal
Well, it looks
with.
like you have a good following now, though.
Yeah.
Does that help you too?
Yes.
Having people that are like supportive, even if it's online.
Yes.
But they're still supportive. And...
I have met so many people online that are now like my really good friends.
I know, isn't it crazy?
It's amazing. You know, like, yeah, the internet can be an ugly place with the trolls and all this, but it can also be very beautiful. Like, I feel like I have met so many people that first of all, that I am friends with and that I've met in person, and it's like, you know, it's just cool to meet people from all over the place.
Because we never would be able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Without it.
Yeah. And then I think another thing that really brings me joy, I mean, it's sad because you don't want anyone to go through the same thing that you've gone through, but I do get those messages where it's like, you know, like, thank you. Like, thank you for speaking up about it. Like, I've been through the same thing, but I'm not at the point where I'm like ready to talk about it. But like, seeing you do it is, you know, encouraging.
Gives them hope too. Yeah.
And I've also, you know, like, had a lot of people be like, thank you so much. Like, I've been following you, and you know, my friend's husband just died, and I felt like I knew what to say, or like I knew what to do because you know, of this. So
because people don't know what to say.
Exactly.
Or they think they know what to say and they really shouldn't have said anything.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard. I think I just got a message the other day, and she was like, you know, like, my husband was a recovering addict, and I'm pregnant with our first kid, and I just found out he relapsed, and it sucks because it takes me back to those days, and it's like, but I wish I would have had someone like that when I was going through it.
Yeah, like, you don't want to be relatable like that, but it does. But it helps.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why, you know, I did grow a following. You know, within the last 2 years, I've gotten over 200,000 followers, and I think that's why.
Right.
Because it's not like the perfect little Instagram life. I have, you know, like a pretty home and my kids are perfect and everything's like, no, I'm like, look at this is fucked up today. Like, my kids are doing this shit. Like, this is how I feel. Like, you know,
because you're being real
and people can relate to that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's also stigmatized topics that are just not talked about enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one of the things I wanted to make sure I asked you about was your ketamine.
Oh, yes.
Journey. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was wild.
Because that is something that a lot of people talk about. We were actually thinking about doing it in our clinic for trauma and stuff like that. I'm just curious to hear how that journey was.
Yeah.
And like, what made you decide, like, okay, yeah, maybe ketamine. Where were you at emotionally?
So I was not in a good place.
Okay.
Like I said, I've struggled with depression and like my mental health for as long as I can remember. I've taken the meds. I've done the therapy. I've done everything. And, you know, I will also say that I know it's only the second year, but I know this time of the year is like the worst for me because everything goes like back to back. It's his death date, and then Mother's Day, and then his dad's death day, and then his birthday, and then Father's Day, and it's all right there.
Yeah.
And it takes me out every year, like no matter how good I'm
Yeah.
feeling before that.
Right.
So yeah, I was not doing good. And like I said, I've been taking the medication and I've been going to therapy. And I just remember like, I was like telling Kevin, like it's my mind is getting so dark. It's like starting to scare me because I'm like getting back to the point where I don't want to be alive and I don't want to get back. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get there. And so yeah, I like just frantically started looking at things like what can I do for like my depression?
Right.
And yeah, the ketamine came up and I guess I was really scared in the beginning because like I said, I've never really done drugs before.
Right. And then you're going to go
Like,
straight
and
to
you're going to do
ketamine.
a
Yeah.
psychedelic. Like
Yeah.
I was nervous. And but I guess it made me feel better because there's someone there with you, you're like there's a doctor and there's a nurse. Right. And but yeah, it's wild. Like, have you ever done EMDR therapy?
No.
Okay, so it kind of reminded me of that, but there's 6 sessions and you go in and you're hooked to the ketamine, to the IV for like an hour, and then they take it out and they kind of like talk to you like about the whole thing, like whatever you want to talk about.
Right.
And
now, how do you feel?
High.
Like, okay. So you just
you're tripping. Okay. Like it's crazy. I've never done shrooms or anything like that before, but I'm sure that's like, from what people have described. So like the first one, it was so weird. I'm like I remember it's so hard to describe, and I would try to describe it to Kevin after every time, and I'd be like, I know I'm not making any sense, but that's how crazy it feels in your mind. Like you are just going on a trip. And I remember like the first time, it was like I was in space. Have you ever been on Space Mountain at Disneyland? It's like a roller coaster. It's literally just like a black room with stars everywhere.
Yeah, we have, right, Hannah? I don't know.
So that's basically all it is. A roller coaster in a black bubble with a whole bunch of stars, like making you think you're like in space. I swear that whole time I was on that roller coaster and it would like stop. And like the first stop was, so when I was younger, I was sexually abused. And that has been something that I've been struggling with because I did learn recently that once your kids become that age that you were abused, it brings it all back up because you like see yourself as a child. Right. So, and yeah, they are that age that I was. So I have been struggling with it a lot. And I go in, I'm in this roller coaster ride and my first stop, and I get off and it's me watching over me and my abuser and watching, that happen. Right. And
oh God, see, that's what scares me. I'm like, is there going to be stuff that I don't want to remember?
Yes, but at the same time, it's good to remember it. So I remember at the end, like when I came out of it, I like felt so good about it. Like it was like I know what you did. Like, this wasn't because of me. Like, this was you. You were wrong. Like, this has nothing to do with me. And not because I ever did think, like, oh, it's my fault, because I was a child. Like, I know. But you can't, like, tell me that, it's because you did this or you wanted, it was like, no, like, you're wrong. Like, this is your wrongdoing, not mine. I didn't do anything.
So you're like giving it back to them.
Yeah. So it has kind of like, like I lived it and I processed it, and then it doesn't really, like, it still shows up every once in a while. And again, I feel like that's normal, especially if you have kids, but it's not in my mind as often as it was.
Did you, when you went into it, did you already know like what you wanted to think about?
No.
It just popped up. Wow.
Yeah. I had no idea. And it was funny because I was like, because I've been to therapy for that. I've
Right.
gone to EMDR. I've been to like extensive therapy for that. So that was like one of the things I told the nurse afterwards. I was like, I thought I was done with that. Like I thought,
Right.
like I'd gone through it, processed it and all that, but obviously not if it's
Still
like coming
there.
back.
Yeah.
So they what they tell you is the drug, you like what you see and hear is what you need to see and hear to
Okay.
help you process.
Right.
You don't go in there thinking something. It's like the drug will give you what you need is
Wow.
basically how they put that. So, yeah, it was just.
So it wasn't scary. It was just
No.
like eye-opening.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second session, I just remember I was so sad. It was just like filled with sadness, and there was like certain parts of like Eric's death and his, all of that. And after that, I feel like I was like so depressed, and I remember telling Kevin like, I don't know if I want to go back. But then the last 4 were like a happiness I've never felt before. Like it was crazy. And
Wow.
yeah, so and they also say like the way it happens is you do past, present, and future is what you're working through. So like the past, like when I was a child, and then kind of like Eric's death, and then the present of like what I'm doing now, and like what you want the future to look like, and like what you can do to, make that happen. But yeah,
wow.
and I think the main thing that it says, it like rewires the brain, like it helps you, like rewire the brain. So, and the way my doctor said it too is like when I first went in there, he's like, all your problems are like right here, like you wake up and you're like anxious, and all your problems are like right here. And when you're done, like your problems are still going to be there. They're just going to be like further away. So you have like room to breathe, which is exactly.
Without the panic when you wake up and anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, exactly what happened. And, you do have to work through it, though. It's not like something that's just going to work for you. You have to develop new habits and stuff like that. But yeah, it definitely did help, because I was at the point where I literally was not getting out of bed. Like I'd take the girls to school and I'd get right back in bed, and I would get out of bed when I'd have to pick them up at 3:00 and then bring them home, and then like do it all over again.
Right.
But now it's like, oh, I can wake up before my alarm goes off. Like I can do all these things. Like I can journal. I can do my laundry. Like it's just a little push that I needed.
The normal stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So it's definitely been life-changing.
How did you get yourself out of that second one?
I honestly don't think I got out of it until I went into the third one. So you have to do it. It's all in a span of like 2 weeks, these 6 sessions.
Oh.
So they're like every other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that long.
No.
You're just laying in bed. And,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a lot of work too. 'Cause I mean, you are doing it back to back. So it's hard, and you do get tired like after the sessions, like, because your brain's working, and like it's just exhausting.
Right.
So you do get like super tired.
Okay.
But yeah.
But you can function like afterwards.
Afterwards, you have to give yourself some time. Like you can't really drive because you do feel like loopy and stuff. So you do have to like give yourself some time.
But you could like go home, eat dinner, and like talk with your family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long ago did you do it?
A month and a half ago.
Okay.
I would say. Yeah.
Wow, and you can tell such a difference.
Yeah.
Do they recommend you going back again?
Yes.
Or?
So it's different for everyone. They give you they send you like this. It's all on an app, and they ask you like the questions that you have to answer, like from 1 to 5, like like the depression questionnaire and the anxiety one and all that stuff. So to kind of like keep track of how you're feeling.
Right.
And it's basically up to you. Like you can go once a year, like for your boost.
Okay.
She's like, some people do it once a year, some people do it twice a year, some people do it every other month, some people will come in every month. Like it just depends what you feel like you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know anybody else that did it before that?
No. So
you were
I think
really scared.
Yeah, I was scared. I do remember seeing like someone on Instagram years ago doing it, and but that's all I remember, just that they did it. I don't remember anything
Right.
like out of, afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was I am glad I did it because I was not in a good space.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Yeah.
Because I've known a few people they've done like that and that, what is it, psilocybin kind of, what is it called, psilocybin, that's what, yeah,
Yeah.
where they do that, where they have like a shaman and you got,
Yes.
I'm like, oh God, I don't think I could do that one
Yeah.
though, because I heard that's rough, like rough.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like if someone's there watching you, then okay, it makes me feel a little better. But yeah, it scares me.
So what's the plan now? Anything good coming up or going on? You're traveling all over, right? And doing
Yes,
interviews and
yes, yeah. So I did create my own podcast,
yes.
and um, I just feel like that's also been so healing for me, like just talking to people and giving people a space like this to
Right.
talk about
Right.
their life. But yeah, I think the plan for now, and I love going around and meeting new people. Like, it's so fun.
Yeah. It is. It
So
truly
as long
is.
as I can do that, I would love to do that. But yeah, just mainly focusing on my kids and raising good little humans, as best as I
It's what's
can.
most important,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So just making sure they know that they're loved, and just not getting ahead of myself, because, I can't help but think like, oh, when you're older, like this
Right.
isn't that,
And
it's
not
hard.
dwell on that. That is tough.
Yeah.
And you're so hyper vigilant
Yeah.
about everything because of what you've been through.
Yeah.
That's totally normal.
Yeah. Like, my biggest fear is like my kids being bullied in school because they're like, oh, your dad didn't love you. Like, and not saying that the kids even need to know how their dad died, but like,
Oh, but kids are
the kids at
nasty.
school. Yeah, I know. And I'm like, I don't do well with that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna end
Kind
up.
of will tell you like the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So that scares me.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think
no.
bullying is getting worse.
So bad.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So I'm like, do I homeschool?
I know. I know. But then you do still need sanity.
Yes.
So I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I can't. I can't do it. Yeah.
What advice would you give like even a young widow, because you're young too.
Yeah.
Like you were like me, so young.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I would say is do what you want to do because you want to do it. When you're so young and you lose your partner, I feel like there's a lot of people trying to navigate you a certain way, and maybe they are trying to help you because they think this is the best thing for you. But like, that's the best thing I ever did was like stick to my gut, like my parents obviously wanted me to stay in California, and everyone was telling me like, you need your parents, you need to do this. And I'm like, I just knew that wasn't for me.
For you, right.
But I feel like there are people out there that, especially like when you're in such a sensitive state of mind, it's so easy to be like, okay, like to give in,
right.
And I feel like what's good for you, what's best for you and your children. So you need to stick to that. Like, don't let anyone else tell you what to do and write your story for you.
Right.
It'll be hard. It'll be freaking hard,
right.
Right. And
but they can do it.
You can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. You did it.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. And I remember like moving out of the rental house. Like when we bought this house, I was moving out of the rental house that I moved into when I did move out of my parents' house. And, like I had no job. Like I was on social media, and at that point I wasn't even on social media because he had just died. So I'm not like doing like, I'm not collabing with anyone. I'm not making money or doing anything. So it was really just like the money I had. And then I was like, okay, it is time for me to start working and like making money.
Right.
But I didn't know what that would look like with my new, like the way my page was going, like with grief and stuff. But yeah, I remember like when I moved out, I was like, I had a moment. I was like, I freaking did it. by myself. You know, like I found someone to rent me a house. I told them my story, and she did, for whatever reason. She was like, okay, like I'll give you a chance. And I never once was late on my rent, missed a rent, any of my bills. And I was like, you did that.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so rewarding to know that you can do it.
Right.
And yes, there are people that like want to help you, and that's great. That's another thing I'd say. If there's genuine people that want to help you out, accept it.
Right. Which is hard.
Yes.
Right.
So hard. Yeah. But yeah, we can do hard things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think too, because I experienced this, how important people should know life insurance is.
Yes.
Because like I was 25, he was 28. We weren't really,
Absolutely.
We owned a business. We were making good money, kind of like how you guys were. And you just don't think about it.
You
like,
don't.
oh, you're not worried about losing your spouse in your 20s.
Yeah.
Like, and if somebody's not teaching you, you don't think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely.
Because holy shit, I can tell you, if I would have had life insurance, it would have made life way freaking easier.
Same.
Yeah. Not that it replaces them or does anything like that, but having the ability to pay your bills and knowing you're going to be okay like that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Because I always say this too, like, obviously I wasn't working, right? I was a stay-at-home mom. But I think of like the people that do have a job, like a corporate job or like a big girl job, I say.
Right.
You know, like, and you lose your spouse and then they give you like how many days to like
for bereavement, like your 3 days or whatever.
And then you have to go back to work. I would not have made it.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
Like I was literally in bed for months and there's no way I would have been able to do that.
Yeah.
So what do those people do?
I know.
You know, like it's crazy. So yeah, life insurance is a big thing because we didn't have it either. And I feel like I get asked that a lot on my Instagram too, and people are like so surprised. They're like, "What? Like you didn't have life insurance?" Like,
or they think if you're doing good, it's because you got life insurance from your husband dying. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I heard that over the last 20-some years.
Yes. Oh, those are some of the nasty comments I get, and they're usually all from men. Like, oh, look at like she's thriving. She's thriving off that life insurance. I'm like, if only you knew.
Right.
How fucking hard I had to work to get here with my 3 kids, but you go ahead and think that. Like, that's fine.
God.
Yeah.
While they're probably sitting there, they don't even have life insurance.
I know, right? Or a wife.
Or a wife, right, exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad you came.
Yes, me too.
Is there anything else that we need to touch on that you can think of?
I don't think so.
We'll definitely have Kenna put everything in for your podcast too. Yes. Tell everybody the name.
Just for today.
Just for today.
The name of my podcast. Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. I felt like, you know, that had to be it.
Yes.
Something special behind it.
Very special, for sure. Well, I think a lot of people will relate to your story too. And it wasn't easy for you.
No.
None of it's been easy.
No. And unfortunately, you know, with this fentanyl epidemic, it's happening more and more. Ugh. And it sucks.
Yeah, it's like, when do you start educating the kids? Because it's kind of a free-for-all out there right now.
Yeah, it's so scary. Like I said, like my 10-year-old, I've already kind of like told her about it.
Yeah.
Emmy never really asked me how her dad died. Like she never asked me afterwards. Up until recently, it was like, well, I guess it's been almost a year now. In October or November of last year, she asked me. So I did have to tell her like in an age-appropriate way.
Right.
And now my son has asked me a couple times. But, like, he changes the subject so fast. I'm like, shoot, I got to prepare for that.
Yeah.
Because it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and they'll probably talk amongst each other, too. And then you have the shitheads at school, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did tell my daughter, I'm like, you know how to tell people, like, how daddy died. You just, you know, like, keep it to yourself. I mean, you can if you want to, but that's not something people need to know.
It's really not their business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.